We got this country of 48 continental United States, and then we got the Hawaii and Alaska. And you're in this area that's not Texas, growing up, not Florida, not California, the belt of a majority of baseball players. But you're certainly not the north where it's all snow. So you're what would be called growing up in a tweener area.
I was wondering where you were going with that, Billy,
Yeah.
but okay, I got you now. Yeah, I grew up in the mountains of Virginia and then went to college in the mountains of Virginia, and it gets cold. We played 14 games in high school, so you're hoping that your 16 American Legion games can give you enough to make maybe a third of what they play in California or Texas or Florida, but it hardens you. It makes you tough. We had a few players that come from the area. Al Holland, probably the
Really?
most notable player who played in Roanoke, and I played against Al in American Legion ball. Al hit Scott Atkins in the head. I mean, Al threw hard, and I don't know how he didn't get drafted either out of high school or out of college. No, none. He threw like 98 with movement, and it just jumped on you. And he hit Scott Atkins in the head, boom, down. Everybody comes around to Scott. Scott comes up, shakes his head. Half minute later, he goes to first. There wasn't anything like a concussion back in those days. You either went to the morgue or you went to first. And I still think that was the hardest pitch I'd ever seen. And usually when you see the ball come into, there's some recognition somewhere between the, I don't know, 56 feet or whatever, that you duck, or even if you can't get out of the way, you make some motion to try to protect yourself. Protect yourself, no. Scott got hit, boom, down. It was like, boom, and you just went to first. And I thought, man, that's tough. I wish I could have done something like that.
What position did you play when you were in high school?
I played third base, and I have first basemen that weren't tall enough. I just threw balls over everywhere. I have guys I'm sure wondered, how did they get to the major league? How did that guy get into the major leagues? Because I had bad.
You didn't get to the major leagues with your arm?
No, I didn't.
Well, let me ask you
No, I
this.
didn't.
As a failed third baseman at the high school and men's senior league level, do you prefer when the ball is hit to you hard so you've got a lot of time to throw out the runner, or do you prefer more of a bang-bang play?
Oh, Rich, it got worse. I was a failed second baseman, too. And
Okay.
I signed as a second baseman. I have the Texas League record still today,
Okay.
Double-A League, for most errors by a second baseman.
But they're throwing errors?
Yeah, I had sort of the Steve Sachs, Chuck
Oh,
Knoblauch,
okay,
where I
so
started. And I was a psychology major. You would think I
Okay,
could
so
have
you're
figured that
saying
out.
you prefer not to have that extra time?
Right.
Okay.
Right. It
No,
didn't really matter in the
Okay.
end.
Oh.
But yeah, but just
Yeah.
for
Who
my...
moved you? Ralph Houck moved Mercer to the outfield as Mantle was ending his career. That was the move. We're getting you away from all these throwing errors from shortstop and third. So Bobby went out there. Who moved you to the outfield?
Well, they figured my bat would precede my glove to the majors, which, they were really smart. And we had bump wills at the major league level anyway, so I wasn't going to unseat bump there. So I was going to have to move at some point. But actually, I played in the outfield in college. I was a left fielder in college. I would have played center, except we had a 5'2" player named Todd Winterfeld who made it to AAA with the Mets.
He did?
Really outstanding player. And so he played center and I played left, and I signed as a second baseman because I thought with my size it'd be easier for me
Joe
to make
Morgan.
it to the majors. Yeah, I'm bigger than Joe Morgan. Come
Of
on.
course.
Joe's a little guy, he's only 5'8". And Hall of Famer, 27 homes a year. But so I moved to second base. I did okay my first year at second base, but I threw one ball away. I could still see Hal Kelly, a pitcher from Plant City, Florida, had an outstanding curveball. And I made 3 errors in the game behind him. He came to console me. I thought, and he never got out of Double-A ball. I'm still feeling bad about it some 40 years later, or maybe 30 years later. But it's, so we knew that in order for me to get to the major leagues, I was going to have to do it with my bat. So they moved me back to the outfield, actually, and then a year and a half later I was.
To leave baseball in high school, you also played football, and then your team also went along with the steps of getting to the state finals. It's very, very strange. It's probably one out of 50,000 high schools, or all these high school championships, but a part of your high school football career gets made into a major film. Now, who's ever listened to this probably has no idea that there is an association to your answer and a role that Denzel Washington played. Could you fill in the blanks?
Yes, it was Remember the Titans. It was T.C. Williams, the team that played. In the movie, they had them play their district team, Marshall, because Marshall was the only close game they played that year. That final game was 19-14. Of the 13 games they played, including us, they shut out 8 of the opponents. We had an early touchdown call back and mounted no offense after that. It was really embarrassing. The defensive backs, I was a wide receiver. And in the previous game, I caught 7 passes for 117 yards and a touchdown
Right.
and a 26-21 victory in our semifinals. I was feeling pretty good about
Sure.
myself. In the finals, I caught 1 pass. I called it back.
I
I was as clutch as ever. I took that clutchness all the way to the rest of them.
Did you know
to
about
the
this
major
Coach
leagues.
Boone? You know, when you were
The only
other
thing,
team?
Billy, we knew is that they combined 3 schools because you're going from district team to district game to semifinal game to the finals to complete the 13 games. And the only thing we knew is they combined 3 schools.
Was your high school football team as integrated as theirs? What was the makeup of your team picture? Because you're in the
Well, we're
60s.
we're further south than they were.
That's right.
We didn't have the kind of strife, I don't think, or at least if we had, we started desegregating in 1966, I think. So all deliberate time came to us at about 10, a lot later than Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957, after the court case in 1954-55. So it took us a little bit, but we had integrated. We didn't have as many African American players as they did, but I think a lot of theirs was combining the 3 schools too, which added to the internal strife that they had.
To piggyback this, in our first book, we did an extensive chapter on Monty Irvin. And then we moved it up a little bit, and he gave us some incredible
Oh,
stories.
I can imagine.
Then we moved to Mudcat Grant, who then marches on Washington with Martin, you know, and gets to know Rosa, and meets President Kennedy.
And why do I laugh when you say Mudcat? But it just sort of brings a smile.
Everybody
Well,
who's in baseball knows
Mudcat,
Mudcat.
yeah.
My point is, you're in the middle of being a teenager in high school, and then one day you hear that this guy that has been working for major change is assassinated by James Earl Ray. Any memories of, you know, people always say, where were you when Kennedy, you know, and so you're in a younger grade, you know, so I'm not asking that. Do you?
No, but I can tell you that one too.
Both.
Oh, yeah.
So for Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy.
When John F. Kennedy was assassinated, I remember seeing 2 of the co-eds. We were in Carver High School, which was 1 through 12. We were still segregated at the time in Salem, Virginia, 1 through 12. And I can remember seeing 2 of the co-eds coming down, and they were crying. Both of the ladies were crying. And I knew something had gone on, and then later I found out. And when Martin Luther King was assassinated, I had just come in from playing, I don't like you play all day and all night long, and it was early evening. We may have even still had a black and white TV in 1968, I'm not even sure.
Sure.
But I remember seeing the interruption on the TV screen, and have since gone to the place in Memphis where he was assassinated.
The balcony.
The balcony, yeah, and that was just.
What was the
really
effect on your
chilling.
household? You know, that's a black family from the South in the middle of this time period where there's great change going on. I'm not saying you or your family, but that's what this man was trying to make sure, that change occurred where it definitely needed to. Was there an effect felt in your household at all?
Well, before that, Billy, I think at that time period, you were used to the violence, I think, that was in America at the time, from the assassination of JFK to Robert Kennedy, who was later assassinated the same year, the same summer as Martin Luther King was assassinated. There were some other assassination attempts on anybody who was making change, it seemed. I don't know if it affected the household any more than just you had a leader who cared about making change assassinated. It could have been the same for Gandhi or any other leader.
Sure.
Of that nature that was very selfless in trying to help other people, and especially when you consider that Dr. King was trying to help the garbage workers who were killed because they were not allowed to go inside. They had to stay in the garbage truck, lightning hit, and it rolled them into the truck and killed them. And that was the basis of why he was in Memphis.
That's the reason why it was. Did you know why he was in Memphis?
It was a union related thing, yeah.
Didn't know.
He
When
got involved in other things.
I've done speaking appearances with you with a bunch of kids in Pennsylvania. You came to our event. One of the things you learned from spending time together, when did the history buff? When did that come out in grade school, middle school, college? When did that, where you said, you know what, I'm digging this area of information?
Thank you, Billy. It's a good question. I think I've always appreciated how we got to where we are, and I want to know why we got here, and because sometimes if you don't do anything about the history, you're bound to repeat it in some areas. And maybe it started, I had some really good teachers, and I can remember a lot of them. Mrs. Lucy Harmon, who is still around. She's 98 years young, and she was my first and second grade teacher. And I think she gave me a sort of that early spark that helps motivate you in a certain way. Edna Prunty, she's no longer with us. She was my third grade teacher. Mrs. Saunders, my fourth grade teacher. Charlotte Dunstan was my fifth grade teacher. Charlotte Griffith, this was the time when we desegregated in Virginia, or my area of Virginia. I was sixth grade teacher. And a number of the teachers I had through high school, Beth Bird, Melinda Sayers, and a lot of the English department, Judy Pitts, which is probably the genesis behind some of my writing. That and the fact that they were really hot, the last three were really hot. So I went into the English office all the time, yeah.
When did you know, as baseball was ending and then the rest of the life begins for every athlete, no matter what sport it is, that to go through what you're going through right now in June, July, August 2012 with getting a movie off the ground, when did you really start to put your energy into that cup? Writing, producing, being part of the work with the director, picking the cast. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just a film that's made in somebody's backyard. Billy and his son Ian, a graduate of the University of Hawaii, put their film, money, time, effort into a film being made union in New York City, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's a SAG film. Yeah, we had.
It's pretty cool, man.
We had
Yeah,
about
yeah,
40
yeah.
SAG actors, which and we have our own IMDb page. I was like,
Come on,
"Oh,
man.
I'm excited.
I know, it's cool, dude.
I was most versatile my senior year in high school.
Yeah.
So like, I guess all of you were saying about me, I'm going, yeah, that's what leads into who I am. I'm most versatile.
You were voted most
I
versatile?
was voted.
You,
yes.
oh, so,
yeah, Rich, I was voted.
no, because some people say they're versatile, but no one knows it.
Did the
by
three-
the class, by the class, by the senior class.
What do they mean by that?
Yeah, right.
They mean,
He could
you mean
just
you were,
do a
you
little
were
bit of everything.
academic, sports, you were a fun guy?
However you characterize
Okay.
versatile, Rich, I was it.